Well, fintech startups grew in value by more than 80% across Africa last year, led by strong performances in South Africa, Nigeria and Kenya. Funding for startups has more than doubled in the first 6 months of this year, with over 640 tech hubs in operation now across the continent. But the startup market accounts for less than 1% of global venture funding. To find out why, I'm joined in studio now by Boum III Junior, co-founder of Daba and our guest for today's perspective. Great to have you in studio with us this morning, Boum.
Pleasure being here.
Firstly, tell us a little bit about your own background and why you're encouraging greater investment in Africa.
Yeah, so my background is fintech software engineering, worked for NASDAQ a couple years, and I hold an MBA focused on entrepreneurship, finance, and strategy. And why am I encouraging investment into Africa is because there's strong opportunity. It's the next frontier, if not the last frontier. It's the future of prosperity, and there are a lot of opportunities that people can tap into. So we want to build that bridge, allowing people to invest into the future.
It's obviously a massive continent, but tell us a little bit about what some of those opportunities are and how people can tap into them.
Absolutely. So technology is definitely at the forefront of investment. We've seen a lot of venture capital funding increase over the past few years, but there are other more traditional industries that are also growing rapidly. Think real estate, think education, insurance, and commerce. So those are some of the sectors. And yeah, investors are now looking to pretty much tap into it, and they need a tool to do that.
Okay, and on your website as well, it says 5 countries now account for more than half of the wealth right across the African continent. We're talking about South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Morocco, Kenya. Tell us a little bit about how that wealth can be spread more widely, and why are those countries doing so well?
Yeah, so number one, I think those are the most fast-growing economies on the continent. And how do we democratize that wealth? The spread of capital is by building financial technology infrastructure for all the other countries. Those countries need exposure on global capital scenes, and that's pretty much what we're looking to do is, hey, there are other countries that have strong markets, strong opportunity. How do you find those opportunities? What does that mean for an investor? And then you start seeing the wealth and the capital being distributed across other African countries.
And we hear a lot about China investing across the continent of Africa. Is that where most of these investors are coming from? Or is it more like they're coming from the US, or is it right across Europe? Or tell us who they are. Yeah,
so China specifically is investing more in infrastructure. So the investor profile varies in terms of the target, the sector they're looking to invest. So you could say that China is mainly an infrastructure investor. US and European companies invest more so in tech. You see a lot of the funding going into the African tech scene coming from the US. And so that's in terms of like where the capital is coming from. And it's a lot of institutional and venture firms, but retail is falling up close.
And is there any particular country that stands out to you? Like Nigeria is doing very well currently, isn't it? Obviously, we talked about South Africa as well and Kenya. But if we turn to Nigeria, why is it such a booming marketplace, given that it does have its own problems, including corruption, it's, a stalling economy as well? So what is it that makes Nigeria so attractive?
Yeah, so I always tend to say political risk is a constant. So when you're looking at investing into a geography, that is a constant risk. You have to look besides that. And Nigeria specifically has very interesting dynamics, and it's a large population, so the market is large enough to make it attractive for investors to come into that. But there are other countries that are, presenting a lot of exciting dynamics. I'm very excited about Côte d'Ivoire, for example, which is one of our launch countries. And there are so many other smaller gems. You just have to go and look and have the right partners on the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing on behalf of investors, so that they have one-stop shop where they can see the continent globally in terms of financial investment intelligence and being able to deploy that capital into those markets.
But if investors do have concerns about certain countries in Africa when it comes to political instability or corruption, how do you manage to convince them that this is a good place for them to put their money?
Yeah, it all depends on the risk profile of the investor. investor, why are they investing? What is the return target? What is the length of the investment? When do they want their money back? And based on those criteria, they will determine which countries are fit to invest, if it's shorter term, mid-term, or long term, and what is the percent, the return on investment that they're looking for. And based on those criteria, some countries will not fit their investment mandate, while others would. So yes, there is risk, but with risk comes opportunity. And if the opportunity meets your criteria, then I think a lot of investors would be willing to pretty much make the bets. But they need the information to be able to determine if it fits their mandate.
And can you tell us a little bit about how some of these startups are making a difference to people's lives? Another very broad question, but is there anything that springs to mind for you?
Absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of areas where startups are transforming pretty much the lives of Africans on the continent. You can think about healthcare, access to healthcare, being able to, access, medical services from your device. You can talk about education, online education, people that are in remote areas now, thanks to technology, being able to access formal education. So those are just access to financial services, for example, with fintechs, mobile money, being able to send, receive money, thanks to technology. So these startups that are active on the continent are really transforming the lives of several billion people.
And you talk specifically about Mauritius as well, being very innovative. And I think it came on the top of one of those recent surveys about most innovative countries in Africa. What are they doing there that is particularly interesting or creative?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a fintech hub. And I think Mauritius, like other countries as well that are being very progressive, such as Rwanda, are establishing regulatory sandboxes or frameworks that make it inviting for technology companies to set up shop there. It's all about regulation at the end of the day. How fast can I go to market? Are you providing me a context enough that allows me to build a solution in your market that fits my needs? And that's what Mauritius, for example, is doing, and Rwanda as well.
Okay, Boum, thank you so much for joining us in studio this morning. That's Boum III Junior, co-founder of Daba, and our guest for today's perspective.
Thank you.